Today we're editing all the images that you saw in yesterday's full wedding day video. If you haven't watched that yet, head over there and then watch the editing video that begins right now. Hello everyone and welcome to the editing section of this video. I'm going to go through a selection of images. This isn't every single image that I'm going to deliver to my couple, but it is kind of across the board of all the different scenes that you would have saw in the video that you just watched. So let's get into it. All these presets here that you can see, 2018, 2019, subtle, travel commercial, and destination. If you are a Patreon member, you can get all of these. If you just want to buy them straight out, you can buy so far the 2018, 2019 pack, and I will be coming out with something that includes all of these as well in the next little bit. It can either be an upgrade or if you just want to buy it all straight out at one time, you can do that as well. But Patreon is obviously the place to get it. And also it is Patreon month, which means that I'm releasing 14 videos there that are all business related. So if you want to book more weddings and really kind of transform your business over the next month and get really, I guess, like everything properly in order for an amazing 2020 season where you can absolutely dominate, head over there, sign up for the month. If you enjoy it, stick around. If not, you can cancel it anytime. So it's $30, join, and you get all these presets for free included in it as well. Today, I'm going to probably begin, I know this venue pretty well, and I think that everything that I'm going to encounter, 2019 color is going to be the one. I'm Canadian, so I spell color with a U if you're a US citizen. I'm sorry for making it look a little bit weird for you to put into your Lightroom, but yeah, this is, I think, the one. Like that was a one click. That was before, after. I'm also, usually what I would do if I was editing, I would sync all of these across this setting here, all the way across all the images, but I want to show you kind of what all the images look like before as well as after. So I'm going to go individually one by one here. And you'll notice that I do kind of crank exposure a little bit. With the newer cameras, I don't think it really does a whole lot when it comes to just like adding grain or adding noise or something that you wouldn't want. And quite honestly, like this foreground grain right here, I really, really like that a lot. And these presets actually add grain as well. So if you want like super clean images, you can do that. You can just scroll down and you can remove all of the grain that's added. But I kind of like texture overall. I think that it used to kind of like photography used to be that like really analog process where there'd be texture and grain, and I like that in my images. I specifically like that in prints as well. Like for Instagram, I feel like you can go either way. It doesn't really matter, but when you see something in print, when it has a nice texture to it, I kind of like that a lot. So I'm just going to knock this down a bit. You can also use the brush over here. Somebody commented a few weeks ago and was like, why do you use this rather than this? I use the gradient filter to bring kind of things down like this, simply because at the time and when I was forming my habits, I guess, it was, well, still Lightroom is a very resource intensive program. And by doing the brush, I felt like everything was a little bit too visible and it was a little bit too slow and it would take a while to take effect. And then I had to hold down, what is the button? One of the buttons does the opposite of it. I think it's like an option button. It erases anything that you've drawn. And I felt that I was doing that a lot. I felt that it was a lot more efficient and a lot faster for me just to use the gradient tool here. So that's kind of, I guess, where that habit formed. And I like it. I think that I like kind of those natural vignettes that come together when you do use the gradient tool. I also really enjoy this preset as far as what it does to kind of blacks like this. And I tend to photograph a lot of black suits, gray suits, and it does really good things. These are also not out of order. We're just moving quickly through the wedding day. The one thing I don't love is the bushes up here kind of in her hair, but we got a lot of images from this section, and Marshall also got a lot. So that's like kind of the one-click preset, and it does the one thing that I really optimized it for was both skin tones as well as kind of midday greens. I found that the presets that I had in the past, these 2018 ones, they do a pretty good job of kind of like handling greens, but usually handling more of the golden greens, which is like during golden hour or like later in the day. I found that with this 2019 preset, what I tried to do is just make everything look really good overall. And I guess like the other main thing for me is that I want it to be as simple as possible. I want it to be a one-click solution. I know maybe there's some stigma about like that you can't just add a preset and then the photo's done, but in a lot of cases, with the exception of maybe adjusting a little bit more exposure, a little bit less depending on how you shoot, I'm kind of pretty happy with it. I will also say, well, one, you can see all my settings up here, except for white balance, but my white balance is typically set to shade, or cloudy, I guess, shade. So cloudy is a cloud, shade is the house with the little lines beside it. I'm usually on one of those depending on where I am out in the world. And I guess like the reasoning for that is that even if we are in the bright sun or we're out somewhere like where theoretically you should be on that sun white balance setting, my couple's faces are always going to be in the shade. So I want to expose and white balance for their face, for their skin tone, rather than exposing for the entire scene. I find that the sun the sun white balance setting kind of makes things a little bit cooler than I would like in most cases. So as you can see, taking kind of that really like acidic-y green image, this is with that white balance kind of baked into it, and just one simple correction and a little bit of exposure, and I'm super happy with that image, and it came together really well. Another thing that I do is I don't do skin smoothing or any sort of that in Lightroom. I do that in a batch process in Photoshop afterwards. So I run it through a program called Portraiture, and it just kind of smooths out skin a little bit more, and it makes it feel kind of as it would have on the day. In bad light, sometimes you just get some weird casts, and I think that just like out run and gun shooting with like wedding photography and taking a lot of images really, really fast, you can't always get like the reflector out, and you can't set up that off-camera light to get that nice three-dimensionality, although we did, I guess, that you saw in the video. So there are things that you can do, but for the most part, I do my best to kind of make the client experience as nice as possible, which means that sometimes maybe I'm not going to set everything up 100% right, because I do know that like maybe if the skin isn't exactly perfect in real life, that I can kind of get some help in post-production automatically with that. Cool. So I was nervous at this one with kind of these bricks that the preset would not be a one-click solution. There's a one-click / I guess crop, but it worked out pretty well. I like that a lot. I also like presets that don't really feel like presets. Like after you've seen a few of the images kind of all back to back, you start to just think that, oh, that's just the color palette of the camera, which I really am into. This was just kind of a quick, I guess, like in between what different things look like. So this is from my 85, or no, this is from my 7200, and then this is kind of the same shot in the same spot with a 24mm lens. So I prefer, specifically in this case, I prefer the more telephoto look, but there are definitely cases when this 24 would kind of be the optimal image, especially when it comes to like the feeling that you're actually there. I like almost the from behind shot a little bit better. You really have kind of a sense of like being in the scene when you shoot at 24, because you're literally like a foot and a half away from them. I don't know if that one's going to make the video. You're very, very close to the couple, and you can feel that. When I went to Gabe McClintock's workshop, Gabe is a fantastic photographer that shoots a lot of kind of like just really epic mountain, really romantic and good feeling images. When I went to his workshop out in Canmore, the thing that he kind of talked about was that he shoots a lot of his work usually on a 35 or a 50 at kind of like almost telephoto end. And when he has control over the settings, when he can get nice and close with the 35, you really get the feeling that was happening at that moment, and you are really, really there and present for it. So I've tried to emulate a bit of that, but because I'm shy and quiet and introverted, it's a little bit harder for me, I guess, to get up that close to people. I really like how that came together. So this was the before, and it's fine. There's just some really nice contrast in the clouds, and I really like how this tree here is kind of in the shade, and there's some sunspots out there, and that's just what the one click of the preset, I guess minus a little bit of exposure, because the preset kind of bumps exposure a bit. This was one of the harder scenes. It's always a bit challenging. You can kind of do the best you can, but this is one of the scenes that I wish there was a better way to light this, but there's really not. That you can kind of do the best you can. So for family photos here, I will usually, actually that preset looks really, really nice on them. So I would usually process family photos a little bit less. So if I am using a preset that's maybe a little bit more aggressive or adds that fade or really does show like, hey, that like this image has been processed, I usually dial that back a lot for family photos because I want them to look great forever. But I actually kind of really like the way that this is all looking. And I don't think it's too much. I think everybody looks great. And I think that that is my overall goal, is to make sure that everybody likes their skin tone and likes the way that they look, or at least is like a little bit better than real life in some cases. And I'm guessing I was shooting on, was I shooting on auto white balance? Maybe not. I might have been. I don't think I was. I was locked down to something. So I'm at 6100 and -3 tint, but it feels a little cooler than a usual image, I guess, would come out of my camera when shooting on shade mode, but that's because it's, I guess, more legitimately kind of in the shade. All right. We kind of use this location for a few family photos, and I was like, wow, that's like one of the nicest locations of the day. So I went back there, and then we go back there again at the end of the evening, and I guess I can kind of do a comparison. It's different lighting situation, time of day, but I bring out the off-camera flash and I have it kind of off to the right here, and it really does, it does a lot. It's very subtle. The image would have been fine without it, but with that little three-dimensionality from the off-camera flash, it really does kind of bring the image together and make it feel like it was an image that like you almost, that was a little bit more lit, that you put a little bit more effort into, that, I don't know. I'm just super happy with that image overall. And as far as the background here goes, I'm kind of like trying my best to keep this kind of in a rule of thirds as well. So I have like this little pathway, I have like this little kind of tiny rule of thirds down here, and then I have this kind of up here in the top corner. And then I have like this specific section here, which is kind of the middle rule of thirds, and then the top as well. So everything kind of comes together there, I guess, like that. As I assume, I'm recording this before I've actually recorded the video that you've just watched, but I would assume that in the video I talk about how the ceremony was supposed to be outside and it ended up being inside, which is totally fine. But this room is very, very green and a little bit of a challenge for color. So let's try it. No, that wasn't quite it. I was hoping that there would have been like that one-click solution to it. That's all right. I think that's the white balance there. And because all of these are locked down to settings, one of the advantages of shooting manual, you can use a little previous button here, so I can just go to the next photo. Previous. It's a little bit of a crop built in, I guess. I'll reset that. And you can just kind of make everything. I'll probably erase this from kind of the key shots, this little panel down there. But I do my best to kind of make sure that that doesn't really exist in the images as best I can. For these images, it's kind of hard, but for anyone that I can kind of like, as I hit it behind there. Same goes with outlets, and there's like a little control panel over here for like the air conditioning. I do my best to hide that all in real life, so I don't have to worry about it too much in post. And I don't know, I think that that's a much better solution to it than trying to like shoot it in camera maybe and get it like 5% better in camera but add a lot of time to your post-production. I would rather just kind of do it the opposite way. All right, color getting a little bit weird. So basically what happened was that there's a lot of light coming in from the right hand side. Put my face back here a little bit. If I click this is the previous button right here. A lot of light coming in from the right hand side, or the right hand side of this photo, her left hand side, I guess. And when everybody stood up, they really kind of knocked that down. So this is, I would say, kind of the best that I can do. There are pot lights above her, but I could probably do something like black and white if I wanted to. But because the rest of the day, for the most part, is going to be in color, I'm going to do my best to keep it color. And then my process is typically, the light is really good kind of at the end of the aisle here. My process is to go back through everything, and basically I do this and I make these really nice and big, and I select kind of all my favorite images. After everything, right click, go up to create virtual copy, and then I do a black and white preset on them and sync it to all of them so that I just kind of have a good selection of black and white photos. But I feel like that kind of bogs the process of editing down if you're trying to build black and whites as you're going, and then it's ruining your ability to copy from previous and a bunch of different things. So I do my best to kind of do all that after. I feel like that process is a bit faster. And as you can see, there is, I don't know, that light's not so great. And then one click, it just becomes a heck of a lot better, and I like it a lot more. All right, a few more images from here. When people are in good light, I just like to get as many candids as I possibly can. My ideal, as I've said a few times in other videos, is like that I want to get one good candid of everyone that's at the wedding. That even if we get photos of them smiling, facing the camera, and they're part of the family or whatever, I would much rather also have one candid photo kind of everybody, or at least everybody involved. So when people are in good light, shoot a lot of photos. When people are in bad light, kind of chill out a little bit, because you're going to spend a lot of time in post-production trying to make bad photos good when you could just shoot them at a better time. Assuming like no crazy moments. Why did it pull from over there? Assuming that no like crazy important moments are going on. Is that all right? Yeah, that's nice. So as I said, I will take that out of a few photos that I knew that I included it in. Maybe this guy up here too. The problem is that once you start doing this, there's like an infinite number of things that you can remove. So now I have to remove that shadow. I might just actually leave that. I feel like that's fine. But yeah, by removing that shadow, it's a lot easier to do in Photoshop as well. So if you have the Photoshop Lightroom package, definitely figure out how to use the content aware fill tool. It is the best tool for doing anything like that. It's super fast. This works most of the time, but content aware will do some really complex things and make them happen for you somehow. And it kind of blows my mind a lot of the time. I think this is me probably cropped into crop mode within my camera, just to get a little bit more reach in there so that I didn't have to get physically as close, that I could kind of crop in my camera. The benefit to cropping in camera is that you're just done when you get into like this part of the editing process, that I don't have to go in here and crop it and make it look like what I wanted it to look like in the first place. All right. This was, again, I kind of foresaw the fact that it was going to be, that it was going to get a lot darker. So I put my flash up, but I felt that I was maybe a little bit too wide. I really do like my 35 now that I have my 35. So if you're kind of on the fence, if you feel like, oh, like what if I need something really wide? In my experience, I'm going to say 99% of the time at weddings, I am totally happy using a 35 as my wide angle lens. The times that becomes a little bit more challenging is pretty much only when I need to do a group shot that is in more confined circumstances than this. So this is totally fine. I'm going to add a little bit of I'm going to make that the opposite so that everybody's nice and bright. The only time that I ever really find myself needing a 24 is one for the cake cut. If everybody like comes in and gets really close up to you, I sometimes need a 24 for that, but I can get away with 35, no problem. If we were going to be trying to do this group shot in this room here, which is where the ceremony was, that might have been a time that I needed a 24 for sure. But if you ever do find yourself in a jam like that, you can definitely just stitch together a panorama. Just make sure you have like one good section of everything and you can stitch it together in post-production. So this is with the off-camera flash. I'm gonna have to lighten up a bit of the edges here. You can kind of see the light fall off where it falls back to kind of the colors that the room naturally was. You know what? I actually like it better the way that I kind of took it. So there's a very specific main focal element to this, and these are kind of all in the background. I also have photos of these other elements, but for this image, I think the head table right here is kind of the number one thing. All right, and as you can see with my light coming in kind of the back here, it's definitely adding something that would not have existed in real life, but not altering the scene in a way that seems unnatural. This was just kind of my, I guess, like the three-dimensionality when using off camera, that if I was just shooting this, again, like straight with nothing, it would have been fine. It would have been a usable image, but it would not have looked that good. But then at the end of the day, is this an image that you need to spend the extra time making look good if you could be out there doing candids? I would argue that you don't have to, that I would rather get photos of people rather than marginally better photos of stuff. Although there's a lot of setup that went into today's wedding, so I thought I should document it properly. And then also my friend did the flowers, Tina did the flowers, so I thought that I would be helpful and get her a few shots while Marsha was out doing candids over in the other room that was really, really tight. And I felt that if there was 2 photographers in that room, it would have been very uncomfortable for everybody that was just trying to enjoy their cocktails. All right, a lot of 1-clicks here. That's a 1-click. It's actually really nice. I really enjoy the light fall off. One thing that I love about Nikon lenses, specifically this 85 at 1.4, the 35 at 1.4, the 24 at 1.4, is the way that all the focus kind of falls off. That I feel like when I'm using, Lindsay has a Sigma Art 50, and I feel like when I'm using it, it's a lot more mechanical. I feel like the ways that I guess like the focus fades in and fades out with Nikon, specifically with these lenses that are a lot more expensive. I feel like they appeal to me, I guess, like as an artist a little bit more. Again, like people maybe aren't going to be able to see that, and it doesn't actually come through in every photo. It's like very rare. I think this is one of the photos that it comes through, specifically with the preset and with this lens. Like this feels like a very nice image. I kind of like this a lot, and it's kind of cool that there's no like stupid distracting elements in it. There's no there's like a fire sign up here. I've never understood why at least in North America, that fire signs are on the ceiling that would be covered by smoke if there was like a, hey, here's the exit, even though you can't see it. So I don't know. That always kind of confused me a little bit. I guess it's maybe so you can see where your exits are. We're getting distracted on a tangent here. All right, off-camera flash in here, definitely doing a lot of good things. I did not have my gel, as I assume that I mentioned in the previous video. So I just kind of left it the bare bulb, and it did a very good job. So during daytime, it's great. As we start to get, we'll get back to being inside, but as we start to get a little bit darker, it gives some pretty strong separation, which can either be good or bad, depending on how you're feeling. We had a lot of photos of the two of them, so I figured it was time to just switch things up a little bit and give them something that's like just a little bit different. And this kind of did it. If I would have had like an orange gel on my flash, I could have like maybe just emulated the sun, but I kind of like that it's just there's a little something else going on in this image. That one's not one that's going to make the video, I don't think. The flash bulb kind of coming out of his mouth there. It's a bit distracting, maybe. It's a bit confusing, but I think it's good for one. I think it's good for that right there. I feel like that's a nice level of kind of backlight, that it's just like kind of coming through. You can kind of see it just on his jawline here and kind of on the back of her head. And it definitely makes it feel a lot different than that image would have felt otherwise. This is, I think, where it started really coming together, kind of that off center, or off to the right-hand side. So my flash is about here, kind of pointed back at them. It is almost completely invisible, but it does so much to create this image that would not have been there had I not used that flash. Again, the images would have been great, but they would have been a lot more almost two-dimensional, like people on background, where the light is kind of coming through. You can definitely feel it's like kind of right here on the back of his head. It's definitely adding something that's making it feel a little bit more professional, I think, overall. This is getting back. It's not even quite dark enough to show the separation. It's getting there now. So in this image, you can definitely see where my light was hitting. So all of these people that are nice and close here are all illuminated by my light. And then all of these people back here are illuminated by the ambient or the incandescent light. So they're a little bit of a different color overall. These were my favorite photos from this wedding for sure. And man, that's so good. I almost want to leave this flash in. I'm going to take it out, but this is, again, one of those instances that 24mm lens like really does create something that would not have existed with a different lens. So I don't think that I could have taken this photo with a 24-1.4 of any other brand other than this Nikon G. I haven't really used too much of the wide-angle Canon lenses, but I'm assuming the 24 would do a pretty good job. But I feel like there's just something going on here that that does not really exist with any other cameras. So that's I guess I'll just keep professing my love to Nikon's G lenses. That's really nice. So Marshall is out over here. There's a little bit of a light kind of on the back here. Originally my plan was I wanted to create like this really dramatic lightning, and I was hoping that we were going to get some lightning in the background, and I could have like maybe Photoshop something in there to like make it even more extreme and amazing. But that didn't happen. But we got this wicked awesome kind of like 360 light. This one was way under. I don't know if I love it, but again, like even though we're way under, like the grain boosted at like 4.25 stops, like it didn't really add anything. And I've also added grain to this image, so it's not by any means breaking the image up or making it not as good. Might just be the expression that I don't love. I'll find a better one to actually include in their gallery. So yeah, really enjoying this little evening session. Definitely a lot different from anything else that I've ever done. You can now officially see my good light up here and the bad light kind of taking over the back of the room. So you can either use this to your advantage. I think in this case right here, it works very well. It works kind of as a spotlight. I don't think it's too distracting. I think as photographers, maybe we're looking at the ceiling being like, where's the light coming from? But I think as just like a regular human that just wants their wedding photos, with the exception of this big tree kind of being in the way here, I think that the way the image comes together like this, it definitely kind of highlights what you want to be highlit. So it works out well. All right, last few images here, just again showing kind of that off-camera light, just nice and close and nice and hidden. And we kept it nice and low so that it's not this big flash like blocking people, that it's just firing at the ceiling. And I zoomed it in a little bit so that it kind of it didn't bleed too much into the audience, into their eyes specifically, so that every time it went off, people weren't squinting. And it worked out quite well. So yeah, that's all from me. Now you can see all the things that are on our keyboard over here. That's embarrassing. I'll put this back in the corner. That's better. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. And hopefully if you enjoyed these presets, feel free to pick them up. They're either available on their own or as part of Patreon, but Patreon September is going to be pretty crazy as far as content goes. So I hope that you join us there. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. And then you also get instant access to all the back content as well. So if you are joining Patreon for the first time, you have all kinds of stuff to get caught up on. I think there's like maybe $3,000 worth of content up there, plus a bunch of stuff that I haven't really put a value on, like our weekly podcast. It's been going on almost a year now. It's a full Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions, plug them into that topic and I will answer them in the next weekly podcast. But other than that, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope that this helped out a little bit and makes your wedding photography life a little bit better, a little less stressful, hopefully. And see you next time, next video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you've made it this far and you've not subscribed, I'm impressed. And then if you want to be notified whenever new videos go up, feel free to click the little bell icon so you can be part of the notification squad whenever new videos go up. I upload a lot of content. September is the month that I'm not really doing that to YouTube because everything's going on Patreon. So if you want those almost daily videos, head over there, and I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.